So now that I have time to play Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, it's time to continue my level series, this time tackling the hardest levels in every world in Super Mario 3D World. Just like in my best levels and worst levels list, this one won't include Captain Toad levels, boss related levels, or those mystery houses. So before I begin, I just want to quickly preface that a very small amount of my subscribers are actually watching my videos, so if you like what you see in today's video, consider subscribing. It's totally free and you can always unsubscribe whenever you feel like it. Anyways, without further ado, here are what I believe are the hardest levels in every world in Super Mario 3D World. Enjoy! Honestly, the world I had trouble deciding on the most was actually World 1. Because, well, all these levels are super easy as they're very beginner friendly. At first I thought of including Switch Scramble Circus, but I realized that place is almost nearly impossible to fall off, so I think the most reasonable pick here is 1-3 Mount Beanpole. Since the cat suit ability is new to this game, new players would probably need to get accustomed to the new climbing mechanic, and this level is very heavy when it comes to the idea. Thus, I can kindly understand this level being a bit difficult at first because of the learning curve we have here. Overall, I just think this world can be up for debate, but nonetheless, this is what I can share to justify as to why Mount Beanpole may be perceived as the hardest for World 1. Up next, we have World 2, which isn't much easier to decide on the hardest level 2, since the ones presented here aren't really that difficult either. I know for a fact that Puff Prod Peaks can be rather annoying since you have to use the cursor to click on those sparkly platforms, or just use the touchscreen if you're on handheld. But after thinking about the word annoying for more than a second, I instantly clicked with 2-3 Shadowplay Alley, and this is because of that stupid piranha plant you can pick up. Now, while I'm mostly focusing more on the single player experience here, I can't neglect the fact that this level is much harder with multiple people, since the plant can freaking throw your friends off, quite literally. This level becomes a lot harder than it should be because of this. Not to mention, depth perception isn't the greatest in this one, so the pits with the fuzzies and the moving platforms can be a bit challenging for newcomers as well. But overall, again, just like World 1, World 2's levels aren't really hard. I just find after boiling down to it, 2-3 is probably the hardest. Entering World 3, we finally have something that I can actually decide on in a flash, and that, my friends, is freaking Switchboard Falls, also known as 3-7. This level introduces these switchboards, which can be challenging to just stay on sometimes because of those freaking huge fuzzy guys and them bees. I also remember falling off here a lot when I was younger playing on the Wii U version, because this level makes you understand that timing is pretty much the key here. One false move and you can pretty much get hit by enemies left or right. Not to mention, I found it difficult finding that one green star, and getting the rest of the collectibles at the end is actually not so straightforward either. On your way down, there's a few other switchboards that you can hop onto, and you gotta pretty much figure out which one will lead you to the one green star and that stamp. To conclude, I'm just glad I don't have that much of a problem with this level as much as I did in the past. Way to go, Switchboard Falls. Alright, so moving on to World 4, I was able to narrow down the list to only 2 levels that I found the most challenging. The first one being Ant Trooper Hill, and the other one being Piranha Creeper Creek. Now, I ended up choosing Ant Trooper Hill slightly over Piranha Plant for a few reasons. Creeper Creek to me is the most difficult when you get to the part with the poisonous swamp and the smaller green platforms with some say psych right nows. However, the game is pretty generous by giving you that random item block. Any extra power up will help you out here because even if you get hit, you have another chance to redeem yourself, which I think is more than enough for you to survive, especially if you end up with that Tanuki Leaf or Fire Flower. On the other hand, Ant Trooper can be deadly because of the depth perception, which by the way absolutely sucks in this game when it comes to jumping on those ants, and timing your bounces when they turn is also kinda whack. Plus, once you fall off, it's pretty much difficult to hop back onto another one. Lastly, that green star where you gotta hop onto one of those ants is rather difficult if you ended up losing your cat belt power up earlier. So, to state, depth perception really kills this level for me. For World 5, it's no contest here. The hardest level has to be 5-7 Searchlight Sneak. Here, you are advised to avoid those moving spotlights as being spotted results in multiple bullet bills chasing you down. The beginning portion isn't too shabby, but it can be a bit nerve-wracking trying to get those green stars. This part isn't as bad because it's more of timing, but once you get towards the end, it can be pretty hard to get that one green star because you're pretty much supposed to get exposed and direct those bullet bills to break those blocks. Now, I understand that this can be pretty easy with a Tanuki suit, but let's just say you're just Big Mario without any other special power-up. Now that can be pretty challenging, especially for new players. Overall, I just think there's a lot of things going on here, which is why you should probably stay a little sneaky rather than hasty. Coming in at World 6, we enter 6-4 Deep Jungle Drift, the only auto-scroll feely level in this list. And I say that because technically you have to play the waiting game with that slow-ass raft. But anyway, what I like about this level is the fact that it's actually engaging. It's not just some raft you're waiting for, but there's also these bizarre walls and platforms that you can climb on to get other collectibles and power-ups. However, it can be a bit tricky not falling off here because again, depth perception is a bit whack, but really there's not too much space for you to move around. One false move and you could be a goner, especially if you're impatient like me and you do dumb stuff like this. But yeah, this level teaches you how to be aware of your surroundings. If you focus too much on those platforms, you may just miss your ride to move forward, and no one wants to do that. Seriously, I advise you guys not to do this because then you're going to be waiting for pretty much forever if you do this like countless times. Ugh, such an annoying experience. Alright guys, so you know the drill. World Castle is notorious for its lava levels, which automatically makes the levels here a bit more challenging because touching them once leads to inevitable death. But what's shocking is the hardest level here in my opinion is not lava related, but rather a water related level. That's right guys, RAMMERHEAD Reef. While Red Hot Running may be perceived as the hardest, it's actually not as difficult for me, and I just find Castle-6 more of a headache no matter how many times I revisit this experience. I also think RAMMERHEAD Reef is the hardest because it requires a lot of patience and lots of spatial awareness, which is probably the biggest takeaway from this level. In most Mario levels, you're pretty much free to do whatever you want and run around, but here, it's just very slow paced with a million things in the screen at times. The hardest part is definitely towards the end where there's these really long Rammerheads, and sometimes you just don't expect them to come out of nowhere. So if you lose your Fire Flower, good luck trying to get that green star on your second time. Yeesh, this place is the worst and hardest, dude, I'm telling you. Okay, so our last level before diving into those bonus worlds is none other than this specific one that always drives me crazy as it gives me hella anxiety whenever I play on it. No, not Spiky Spike Bridge, and no, not shockingly a beam in the dark, but Bowser-7 GRUMBLUMP Inferno. Now this one is just pure madness. Seriously, whose idea was it to make us stay on those frowny cubes the whole entire time? Who? I literally have no patience with this one because honestly, it's the same idea but progressively gets harder as you go. It's all chill at first once you figure out the pattern, but once the Hammer Bros come in, just the bane of my existence. I get a heart attack whenever I get here, but what's even worse is when you thought you jumped on the Hammer Bro or pillar housing the stamp, you actually miss it again because, you know, depth perception. And once you finish that part, it does not end here. The last segment is the most annoying because instead of being on a cube, you're on some rectangular prism, which I always forget that when it turns sideways, it's hella scary because it changes from a long surface to a short one and like vice versa, and because of the imbalance to steepness, that you have to quickly get used to it. Ugh. In the end, the flagpole can be one of the hardest to attain because of the timing. Now, continuing this heat that I've established for myself here, we have this. I hate it not because it's bad, but because how freaking challenging this thing is. Seriously, I'm gonna say the same thing. Whose idea was this? Anyway, the chaos begins by riding those flipboards, which aren't really too new since we saw them previously, but what makes them difficult is maneuvering in them while avoiding multiple cannonballs and parabones, while also trying to hit these annoying ass switches, because if you don't, you might just end up dead. That's pretty much the main gimmick here in this course. Luckily, you're provided a ton of cannon boxes, but then again, imagine wanting to head back. No thanks. Also, let me just add that this section right here is the bane of my existence. I'm telling you, you'll have a hard time if you're not Luigi or Peach. My goodness. Overall, the secret to Cosmic Cannon Cluster is honestly timing and some patience. If you don't have any of those two in your head, well, you're in for a treat. At World Mushroom, I honestly thought Trouble in Shadow Play Alley would be the hardest because that one always gave me trouble on the Wii U version, but on the Switch version, it's simply not the case. The speed increase and the new long jump and dive moves here have made this level a lot easier. So the runner-up here definitely has to be Broken Blue Bully Bolt. Timing those blocks that rise up and down are such a hassle here, especially if you run through this level Tanuki-less. Now, I find it pretty easy with Peach or Luigi, but Mario and Toad will have a bit more of a harder time. The middle section with a bunch of spiky rods, ascending and descending blocks, as well as those potaboos can make this experience quite challenging and cumbersome. Not to mention, one of those green stars resides in the middle of this mess. And also this side-scrolling part is all about timing your jumps as the fire sticks are on a maximum overdrive level, and one false move can honestly leave you power-upless. With Mushroom Dash 4 out of the question, this is simply the hardest one in this world. Second to last on this list is hands down Flower Dash 3 Piranha Creeper Creek After Dark. I'm sure many of you can agree that this level is the definition of please be cautious, and not only because of those poisoned swamp parts, but also because of this ruckus that's just right in front of you. The level starts off by telling you that you gotta either avoid or defeat those piranha plants by using fireballs. However, Nintendo decided to amp up this version by making you play in the dark, so most of your vision is being relied on those fireballs that you throw. What also makes this part hard is in order to get the green star, you actually need to light up every torch in that segment, which is again almost nearly impossible to do without a fire flower. Scratch that. It is impossible to do without a fire flower. However, the madness does not end here as the next part is the freaking worst. Now, you have to platform across the poisonous swamp while trying to avoid more safe psych right nows, fire piranha plants, spiky rods, and again, deadly parabones, the game's devils. Depth perception, like I keep mentioning, already sucks, so it's even worse at night, and you'll find yourself having to replay this level probably a dozen times, as you need the fire flower to light up pretty much every torch in this section, which is even harder than the first section, because of all the BS and those rotating platforms. Yeah, you understand my pain now? Well, if you don't, then everyone watching this video can agree that World Crown's Champions Road is the definition of actual pain in Super Mario 3D World. Champions Road by far is the hardest level in this game, and it's not even a close competition. On the Wii U version, I failed this one, I want to say at least 100 times, and even with muscle memory years later, I died around 20 times before beating it. This road, in my opinion, is even harder than the perfect run in Galaxy 2. You basically need perfectly timed jumps in this one, especially if you get to the beat block-esque section of this level. The fuzzy section also is heavily reliant on how well you know depth perception in this game, and one of the best places to lose your power-up. The water section is something you can get used to easily, but the last part is always that moment of truth. And honestly, y'all already know why. You basically start panicking here because 95% of the time you're already small, and one hit from those endless spawning fire waves can lead to unrecoverable depression. Not to mention, it can be rather difficult controlling yourself in those dash panels, and since the camera doesn't show the full scope of them dash panels in the end, a fire wave can come out of nowhere and ruin your parade. To conclude, the game congratulates you for enduring countless torture, and yet still scares you at the end because there's a chance you might need to do it again if you f**k up hitting that flagpole. Whatever you do not do that, please. Think of your health and the people that you love. Whew, what a list. I'm glad I'm done talking about my personal list, but hey, let me continue the conversation with you guys. What do you think are the hardest levels in every world in Super Mario 3D World? Do you agree with my list, or do you have a completely different one of your own? Let me know in the comment section below. As of always, leave a like if you enjoyed today's Mario 3D World video, and subscribe if you want to see me cover more Mario topics and other things Nintendo related too. In the next one, I'll be ranking every power-up in the game, so if you want to see that, be sure to turn on notifications. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Deuces.